Yo, what's going on, everyone? Brian and Jim here once again, and today we're checking out Superman in a dual review for the Game Gear and the Master System. Haven't heard that in a while, have you?
Released in 1993, this Europe-only release was developed by Kraft Gold and published by Virgin Interactive. It's the first game that we have that we're going to review for both the Master System and the Game Gear. If you saw our Superman on the Genesis review, this game is actually a kind of dumbed-down port of that game. Why it's only in Europe, hell if I know, but here we go.
So before I jump into graphics, let me say one thing. Jim and I may be experts at getting drunk and playing video games. That doesn't mean we've played every single game, and neither of us have great experience with the Master System. But doing some research, the best way we can compare graphics on the Master System are to NES games, because they're both 8-bit, and I know Master System should be a little better. So just keep in mind that's the scale we're using when we look at this game. But like the game on the Genesis, there's actually a decent amount of color in this game. I almost compared this to the NES Batman game, a far superior game.
Maybe someone should have been better at fighting games.
Maybe you should calm your tits.
I will not calm my tits!
There's a lot of darkness with some bold colors thrown in here, and it's actually pretty decent looking. Now obviously, since this is a Master System game, there is no parallax scrolling. The enemy types aren't quite as varied as they are in the Genesis game, but it still looks good. I will say there's almost no differential between the Game Gear and the Master System, at least as far as our scores are concerned. So as you see, we both gave it 6s. We feel it's above average, but it just doesn't knock our cocks off. So that's a thing, right, Jim?
Better than chilling tits.
Oh, you can chill them or you can calm them.
You know what? I don't care. I don't fucking care!
I'm going to add 2 beers. One, because I just would have liked to see a little less darkness in this game. Just like a little less darkness in the Zack Snyder movie. Oh! Topical. And another beer for Jim to calm his tits.
Anyway, the sound. The sound, it's not bad. You don't really get a lot of variety in the music at all. I think there is maybe one real song to play damn near the whole time. The sound effects are really, really simple. It doesn't do a lot to save the game. In fact, if it wasn't for the decent quality of the few music tracks you get, this game would have been a mess all around from a sound perspective. So Brad gave it a 3, I gave it a 4. Maybe a little higher than it deserves, but that's what we're going with. Anyway, as far as beers go, I guess I'll add 2 beers for the maybe 2 music tracks in the whole game.
Keeping in line with the other Superman games, you have a really simple control scheme here. You have attack, jump, and in this game, thank God it only took 3 games in, you can actually fly. You have to hit up and jump, but it's a fairly smooth transition to do that, and it's not bad at all. Where are your special attacks, you may ask? Once you collect power-ups or you're in flying mode, it's the same attack button, but then you just have, laser beams. Or if you get the correct power-up, you just use it instantly. But those attacks are only limited, so it's almost kind of arcadey in a way. Once again, like the Genesis, there is a little bit of a delay. And I don't know if it was a slower processing speed of the Master System. It felt a little bit worse here, but since you got to finally fly, we overlooked that. So as you see, we both gave it 6s. I'm not even going to add a beer. Had this been the very first Superman game, we would have probably liked the Superman series, or at least been off to a better start. But since you're 3 games in,
Oh, the gameplay. Well, the first thing to mention is, if you played the Genesis version of this game, then you're already going to be pretty familiar with this game. The set pieces, the levels, the way the levels get split up, there are a lot of similarities and it's almost the same. Except in the fact that there's, going to be a lot of missing visuals, a lot of missing enemies, and honestly, some of the boss fights just get repeated again and again. It's a dumbed down package, but it is kind of a faithful port, and the fact that it has the whole flying mechanic in it actually gives it some layers more of depth than the Genesis game did, even without some of the more extravagant gameplay options. Again, this is a hard game, so don't go into it thinking you're just gonna run through it, because God knows you're not. But there's just something, I don't know, I guess weirdly charming about the game. Maybe because it's, on the Master System / Game Gear, but I don't know if I expected less from it, but it seems to be a more successful game overall.
Maybe because you can fucking fly!
You know what? That might be a really big part of it. So, we gave it 6s. It's not a, per se, great game, but it's a decent little brawler. And on the Game Gear, it's especially fun for, when you're on a long bus trip or road trip or, whatever you're gonna blow through 6 AA batteries in 10 minutes for. As far as beers go, I'm just gonna add 1 beer for just being a dumbed down port. Why not?
Once again, the originality. This is a port of a game that's already been out and it's been dumbed down, and we gave that game a 2. But this added flying in it, which is a huge difference in our eyes. And other than that, there's nothing really original. Yeah, it's the only Superman game on the Game Gear or the Master System, but we can't give it too many points. So, to stay fair, we kept it at a 2. There's not much else to say. They didn't add anything new here. I'm gonna add 2 beers, just because if you had a year to develop and you throw in flying, why couldn't you get the superpower system down a little better, or just add something else new to the mechanics?
The replayability. Basically anything that we said for the Genesis game applies here. It's only replayable because of how tough it is. If you know what you're doing, you can pretty much blast through it. Still tough, but at least you're knowing what you're doing and you know where the enemies are coming from and their patterns. Not much to say here. I'm gonna add... what the hell. I'm gonna add 2 beers because it's the same tough game on both consoles.
Overall, Jim and I were both pleasantly surprised because we had such low expectations after playing a few of the other Superman games that, like Jim mentioned, there's an odd charm to this, and maybe it's because it's on the Master System or Game Gear, we're being a little more lenient, but still, it's a very shallow package that really just amped up its replayability by making it a really tough game. Some people might like that. It wasn't exactly Jim and I's favorite thing. So, as you see from our scores, I gave it a 4, he gave it a 5. We kept it on par with the Genesis. As we kept mentioning, yes, the flying was a better mechanic and it made the gameplay experience a little more fun. However, if we're keeping in mind the fact that it took a whole nother year to release this, that's not that impressive. So as you see, when we combined all of our scores together, it's a 4.4. Yes, that is technically lower than a Genesis version, but I can tell you that is strictly due to the graphics and sound. The Genesis had a better presentation, but we would still suggest if you actually have a Master System or a Game Gear, this might not be a bad title to get, especially if you're a Superman fan. We still wouldn't suggest paying more than maybe $4 or $5 for it, but it's not one you're going to totally regret. You'll at least spend a lot of hours trying to beat it, because it is fucking tough. When it comes to pairing a beer with such an obscure title, I wanted to pick something that probably most of you have never heard of. So I'm going to go with the Windridge 10-Point Ale. This is a really good beer from a brewery that I didn't personally even know that much about, and I live in PA. So if you can find this in your local beer store, pick it up and pair it with these unique titles for the Superman series. And remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.